Good afternoon, everyone. And once again, a very warm welcome to all members and guests to IPEd's first face-to-face annual general meeting under the new structure and constitution. This AGM is to consider matters relating to the 2016 to 17 financial year, the first year of operation under that structure. As Chair of IPEd Council, I need to take us through a few formalities. I'll chair the meeting as per clause 10.2 of the Constitution. For any here who don't know me, I'm Kerry Davies, IPEd Councillor for Queensland. I'm also a long-standing committee member for Editors Queensland and a proud member of IPEd as a freelance editor of some decades. Councillors present today are, and I ask councillors to give a wave as I mention their names, Loeen Dobe, South Australia.
I did.
You did? Okay. Renee Otmar, Victoria. Stephen White, Western Australia. Michael Wyatt and Ted Briggs from the Accreditation Board, who is also now a non-executive member of the IPEd Council. Michael Wyatt, Councillor for New South Wales, has unfortunately had to cancel and unexpectedly cancel his conference attendance, and he gives his apologies. Together, we comprise the directors of the company. Also present in the room, and give a little hoy if you are out there, Mary Jo O'Rourke, alternate councillor for Victoria. There she is, hi. Anna Maynard, alternate councillor for and Accreditation Board delegate for Western Australia. Hello, Anna. I've mentioned Ted as Accreditation Board chair, but he's also, I must announce, outgoing chair.
Yes.
But he's also one of, and I'll get to that in a minute, one of the national coordinators of the mentoring program. And also Accreditation Board delegates Linda Nix, New South Wales. Linda, yeah, up the back there. Desley Page, Queensland, who is also, Desley, the incoming chair of the Accreditation Board. Valerie Mobley, South Australia. Yep, there's Valerie. And Elizabeth Spiegel, Tasmania. Elizabeth? There she is, who is also representing President Anne Hughes. Welcome to you all. On behalf of Council, the Accreditation Board and IPEd staff, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to Ted for steering the accreditation scheme since 2013. Yep. Overseeing the 2014 and 2016 exams, the latter being the first on-screen exam, and establishing the accreditation renewal process. A mammoth effort. Applause, please. Thanks. And to Desley for taking over the helm. Welcome also to branch presidents, Julie Ganner, New South Wales. Julie, there she is, up the back again. Where am I? Oh, and Julie's also New South Wales alternate Accreditation Board delegate. Ruth Davies, Queensland. Yeah. Yay. Loeen Dobe, South Australia. Jackie Coyle, Victoria. Yay. I keep on looking up and losing my place, sorry. And Georgina Gregory representing WA President Cheryl Bettridge. In the middle there, yay. And to Johan Idris, President of the Canberra Society of Editors. Johan in the room. Boy. Oh, well, thanks for being here, Johan. I know he's at the conference. And is Sherry Quinn, Secretary of the Australian and New Zealand Society of Indexers and Chair of ANSI's Accreditation Committee. Sherry's also attending the conference, if she's not in the audience today. I also welcome IPEd staff, and please make yourselves known as well. Karen Lee, CEO. Company Secretary, Connie Finestone. Corporate Services Officer, Tay Winchester. Tay. Yay. Communication Officer, Marianne Kame. and Membership Officer Nicole Mathers. I thank all staff, including Finance Officer Katrina Potter, who can't be here today, for their work in preparing the AGM papers and reports and setting up the AGM. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank former Secretary Margaret Telford, who left us in February this year, for her superb work for IPEd and dedication to its aim since 2014. She did grab a workshop yesterday but couldn't take any more time off, unfortunately, to attend the conference. I did catch up with her. Connie will be taking the meeting minutes and is also on hand to clarify elements of the Constitution if required. Connie and Nicole will be tellers for vote counting and verification. I'll now hand over to Connie to present apologies and proxies received.
Okay, so we have 19 formal apologies received from Eric D. Revell, IPEd Auditor and Director of Teamwork Accounting, Michael Wyatt, as Kerry mentioned, New South Wales Councillor, Rolly Sussex, Anne Hughes, Cheryl Betteridge, Stephanie Herriot, Elizabeth Manning-Murphy, Eris Harrison, Louise Stefanovic, Joan Gladwin, Marie Furland, Katie Podamani, Bruce Robbins, Vida Corbet, Carolyn Gordon, Winsome Byrne, Marianne McKay, Christina Thornton and Robin Short. We've received...
I will add there that Rolly did want it to be known that the only reason he isn't with us here today, which happened a couple of years ago as well, is that he's about to go live to air on ABC Radio, so he had to dash across the road. He'll be back this afternoon for his keynote.
Thanks, Kerry. We've received 3 proxies, one directed to the Chair, 36 electronic votes via SurveyMonkey and 2 email votes. Present here today are 80 registered AGM attendees plus 8 attendees via live stream, and of those registered, 75 attendees are eligible to vote today, so thank you.
And if you haven't formally registered, anybody not formally registered to vote today? Good, you all did it, thank you. Oh, one up there. We'll hand you a bookmark to hold up if there's no wristband. Can you give your details to Connie too when after the meeting? We'll be fine with it. Yeah, we have included wristbands in the lanyards for delegates who are eligible to vote today. So they are financial members who are professional members. That's a category now instead of full. We used to call, some of the old societies used to call them full. That category is now known as professional. And honorary life members. So, yeah, please ensure that you have your wristband on so we can see it when we're going through the motions, so to speak. If you have already voted electronically, please abstain from voting here. A few more formalities. I confirm that the notice of AGM, including the audited financial statements and annual report for 2016 to 17, was sent to all members in accordance with the Constitution, Clause 9.4, on the 23rd of August. I remind members that the only substantive matters that can be considered by the meeting are those listed in the notice of meeting. But members will have the opportunity to ask questions or make comments on the business of the meeting as we proceed. Minutes of the AGM of 27th of November 2016 and the audited financial statements for 2016 to 17 were attached to the notice of meeting for members to review and will be raised formally at those agenda items, apart from some summary comments shortly. I also note that the quorum for IPEd AGMs, according to Clause 10.1A of the Constitution, is 25 financial professional members, including honourable life members, present in person or by proxy, according to Clause 10.6. Voting by postal vote, including electronic means. With that, I proclaim this annual general meeting open. As mentioned, this AGM is to report on and consider any matters relating to the 2016-17 financial year, but following the meeting we have allowed additional time for members to ask questions or make comments outside the business of the meeting. That will be following the plenary. No motions will be considered during that session. Before we proceed to the actual formal business, however, I would like to briefly touch on a few matters addressed in the annual report. Much of the year was devoted to settling in staff and new systems and processes under the new IPEd structure. I again wish to thank, as I did last year, Charles Howan, Councillor for Victoria until June 2016, and IPEd's Technical Transition Manager until July 2016, for his tireless work on transition matters in the previous year, setting us up for the enormous tasks of the year ahead. I would additionally like to thank CEO Karen Lee and all staff and councillors, as well as branch committees, for their hard work and diligence in making this transitional year run as smoothly as possible, often under difficult circumstances. And I thank all our members for their support. The new membership structure has also meant a very different financial structure, with a new income stream from membership fees and, of course, new costs for national staff and systems and financial responsibility for branch operations. Notable is the receipt also of around $101,500 as unreserved society donations. Costs associated with the establishment of the new structure, systems and processes have been identified as national development costs to be expended against those unreserved society donations and apportioned slowly in order to use those finite funds appropriately and preserve as much as possible for future needs. The costs associated in this last financial year were $32,500, and they included initial staff and branch training, some contractor staff and recruitment costs, and strategic planning, leaving a balance of $69,000. As stated in the annual report and audited financial statements, at 30th of June 2017, IPEd had an operating surplus of $25,500, rounded, which, combined with the 2016 retained surplus of close to $31,000, gave a total retained surplus of just over $56,500. However, I would like to point out that without the unreserved donations, we would have had an operating deficit of $43,500. Combining that with the retained surplus from 2016 would have reduced that deficit to $12,500. The upshot is that without decreasing expenditure and or increasing member fees, which we do not want to do unless absolutely necessary at this point, IPEd must find new income streams to succeed. Budgeting for 2017 to 18 has included necessary provision for increased staff hours. A lot of you might not be aware that the staff have been on between 8 and 12 hours each per week. That's 0.2 or 0.3 of a full-time working week. We're increasing those to 0.3 and I think 0.4 for Karen. And that has been necessary and absolutely essential for the next year in order for us to deliver the services and representation that members expect and to cover additional branch administration costs, such as for branch committee honoraria and AGM costs, that were not IPEd costs in the previous financial year. To fund these increases, IPEd is aiming to attract new members, as well as grant funding and appropriate corporate sponsorship. The budget also includes an additional $60,000 in society unreserved donations received in July, raising the balance of the future fund to around $129,000. It's a precarious road, but not an unexpected one for an organisation in its first year under a radically new structure. As I read somewhere recently, one of those things that you pick up along the way, you can only learn and improve by having the courage to do it. Apart from the routine but important matters of finances, systems and processes, IPEd staff and councillors have worked hard throughout the year and achieved much. We've lodged submissions to government and the university sector, finalised results of the 6th accreditation exam held in June 2016, the first to be delivered on screen, conducted and reported on the 2016 Editors Survey, established new member benefits, launched the National Editors Directory, gained members from the ACT and New Zealand, and begun advocacy work with other industry organisations. We've established new standing committees for mentoring and professional development, as well as planning for an academic editing committee and a communications working group. And we've also consolidated the Style Manual Steering Group, which has made some inroads with the federal government to progress the Style Manual 7th edition. We've also begun strategic planning for 2017 to 2020, of which you'll hear more shortly. We've undertaken governance training for counsellors and various PD activities for staff, and supported the Queensland branch to organise the inaugural Roseanne Fitzgibbon Editorial Award, the Rosie, to be presented tonight, and to stage this 8th IPEd National Editors Conference. Reports from the branches in the annual report included accounts of great PD programs and member events, strong support for freelancers, and gratitude to branch committees for their hard work and commitment. I thoroughly endorse those sentiments, and I ask that everyone here who is currently on a branch or national committee raise their hands. Now, additionally, those who have previously served on committees. That looks about like everybody in this room. So let's give us all a round of applause. Well deserved. Thank you. And now I take us to the formal agenda. Okay, agenda item 3. Confirmation of the minutes of the annual general meeting held 27th of November 2016. Connie, would you like to confirm electronic and postal votes received?
Votes confirming the minutes, 33, and votes against, 0.
Okay. I will now put the resolution to the meeting that we confirm that the minutes of the IPEd annual general meeting held 27th November 2016 have been received and noted. Can I have a show of hands, please? For the resolution? Any against? Motion carried by a majority of members, in fact unanimously. Agenda item 4, to receive and accept the IPEd annual report for 2016 to 17. Connie, the votes please.
Electronic votes confirming is 36 and against, 0.
I'll now put the resolution to the meeting to confirm that the minutes of the IPEd annual general meeting held 27th of November 2016 have been received and noted. Show of hands please for the resolution.
It's the annual report.
Sorry?
Annual report.
Oh, the annual report. I thought I'd said that before. Which was sent to members on the 23rd of August. Okay, show of hands for the resolution to accept the annual report. Any votes against? Duly carried by a majority of votes. Again, unanimous. Agenda item 5, to receive and accept the audited financial statements of IPEd and the reports of the directors and auditor for the financial year ended 30th of June 2017. Connie, please.
Votes for, 34, and votes against, 0.
I now put the resolution to the meeting to confirm that the minutes of the IPEd annual general meeting held... It's a bit of copy and paste here, Connie. That the audited financial statements of IPEd and the report of the directors and auditor for the financial year ended 30th of June 2017 have been received and noted. Show of hands, please, for the resolution. Any votes against? Motion duly carried by a majority, in fact, unanimous, of members. I now proceed to agenda item 6, a special resolution proposed by Editors Victoria. Now, I would like to make note here that this particular resolution requires a 75% vote because it is a special resolution and it is one to remove a clause from the Constitution. It is a subclause and one that was in fact a bit of an anomaly in the Constitution and didn't really belong there, and it was It was a clause that required the former societies of editors to have decided the amounts of their unreserved and reserved funds to be donated to IPEd before the 30th of June 2016, so pre-transition. Most of the societies have already done this. Some of them had actually decided the amounts before 30th of June. Some of them had decided the proportion, because what actually happened was that it wasn't possible to know the exact amounts because there was still money to be expended on final AGMs and winding up, and other costs such as honoraria for the previous financial year. So this motion is to that the members of IPEd approve the amendment of the current constitution by the deletion of sub-rule X6B. Can you read that motion out, please, Connie?
Yep,
You've got the
I will.
constitution there.
So-
Thank you.
So it is, that is the motion, that the members of IPEd approve the amendment of the Constitution by the deletion of sub-rule X6B, and we've had electronically 34 votes for and 1 against.
You haven't got a copy of the constitution there to read the actual
I do.
clause?
I'll just read the whole section of that constitution. Branch reserved funds. Each participating society may specify an amount of funds which are transfers to IPEd as being reserved for purposes to be determined by its successor branch, provided that the amount of branch reserved funds is not greater than the participating societies of total funds after paying all its liabilities and after deducting sufficient funds as determined by the agreed formula in the transition plan. And B, which is the clause in question, the amount of branch reserved funds is determined prior to the transition date.
So the clause B, the decision prior to the transition date, we will wish to remove. In fact, it's essential that we do so. So can I have a show of hands for the resolution? Any votes against? I declare the motion carried by majority, and it seems that that also almost unanimous. Okay. Declare that carried. This now takes us to agenda items 7, 8, 9 and 10 relating to the appointment and reappointment of councillors as per AGM Rule 11.5. That rule says that the process of appointment is that the council shall by written notice cause to be circulated a list of the nominated councillors with the notice convening the annual general meeting, and that was done, and that at the general meeting any person duly nominated by a branch in accordance with Rule 11.4 shall be duly appointed as a councillor. I would therefore like to confirm the appointment of IPEd councillors as follows. Confirmation of reappointment of councillors who are at the end of their current term and nominated for an additional 2-year term. Myself, Kerry Davies, Editors Queensland. Loeen Dobe, South Australia, Editors South Australia. Mary Jo O'Rourke, Editors Victoria, alternate councillor. And the appointment of new councillor nominated for a new 2-year term, Renee Opmar for Editors Victoria. I would also like to acknowledge the following councillors. Councillors entering their second year of their 2-year term: Michael Wyatt, Editors New South Wales, who is an apology today; Stephen White, Editors WA; Anna Maynard, formerly Sweet, Editors WA alternate; and acknowledge the retirement of councillors during the 2016 to 17 financial year: Claire Linsdell for Editors New South Wales, Jolie Taylor for Editors Victoria, Catherine McDevitt, Society of Editors South Australia alternate. So they were there simply for acknowledgement. There is no vote to be had on those agenda items. Agenda item 11 is other business, and no other business was received by the Secretary or notified to the Secretary prior to the meeting notice. So agenda item 12, meeting close. I would now like to formally close the AGM. Thank you for attending. The member plenary session will now follow.
Good afternoon, and I'd like to echo the sentiments expressed by Kerry in welcoming you to our AGM. As you've heard, this year has been a very productive one for us post-transition as we set up structures, systems and processes to effectively run a truly national organisation. This has been a huge undertaking for staff who are employed on nominal working hours and a voluntary board. I would sincerely like to thank you, our members, for your patience as we have worked through our challenges. Council has mapped out the proposed direction of IPEd's work over the next 3 years as an essential step in our development. This is a living document that will no doubt be added to, subtracted from, and reported on over this period. For now, we are delighted to formally launch IPEd's strategic plan today. Our strategic planning process followed a focus process. As you can see, we reviewed and sharpened IPEd's vision for the organisation. We want to position IPEd as the trusted voice of professional editors, shaping the future of communication in as many realms as possible. We retained our mission, which still rings true, to advance the profession of editing. We redefined our values. This means a commitment to the values that IPEd upholds, which are that we are collaborative, mutually supportive, adaptable, inclusive, respectful, principled, and committed to excellence. And particularly important, that we remember to celebrate our contributions and success as editors and as a profession. We reminded ourselves of our promise to members and what it means for you to belong to IPEd. Your membership helps you to connect and collaborate, to run your business, accelerate your career, gain respect as a professional editor, to be part of a supportive community, and again, to celebrate your own achievements and those of your profession. On behalf of Council and staff, we would really like to thank you for your input and feedback in getting us to this stage. We have benefited from your feedback through IPEd's transition papers, as well as more recent correspondence and stakeholder interviews with branch presidents, councillors and staff, which helped us set the course for this strategic plan. This document would not have been possible without all of you. I would also especially like to thank branch presidents for spending time with me in the lead up to launching this strategic plan, and I welcome their individual feedback and input. I'm excited about how IPEd Council, the National Office, and branches will work together to deliver on our priorities. Over the course of the year, we will introduce processes to gain feedback on how we're doing and what we can do better. So, what does the road ahead for IPEd look like over the next 3 years? These 4 core priority areas will form the foundation of IPEd's work moving forward. Building a strong organisation gives confidence to our members that we're looking after their interests and that we're adhering to our legislative responsibilities. So how will we do this? Maintaining financial viability is one of the key priorities for IPEd. We aim to generate new sources of revenue to fund our operations and service delivery to members. Staying connected with our most important people, you, is another key priority. We know the importance of communication, particularly as we're embarking on a new journey, and we want to ensure that we take you every step of the way with us. People often say that it is vital to have the right people on your team to be successful. So part of my job is to ensure that we have the right mix of skills and talents in our team. Having systems that are best practice ensures that we maintain a healthy and functioning organisation, and we are constantly reviewing and improving our systems. Last, we strive to ensure that IPEd meets and exceeds all of the required legislative, industry and government standards. I'll now hand over to Kerry, who will take you through the next couple of priorities.
Supporting a thriving membership. How do we support a membership that is vibrant, engaged and active? We know that not all editors are members of IPEd, and we want to change that. So we're seeking to tap into work areas and workplaces to find those editors and convince them of the value of belonging to IPEd. We're looking also to establish new IPEd branches with an incredibly enthusiastic group of editors in New Zealand who are very keen on joining IPEd. Some of them are here with us at conference. And some have already done so through Australian branches. Others want their own New Zealand branch first. We're working on it. And we're currently in collegial discussions with CSE, the Canberra Society of Editors, on joining IPEd. We already have good connections and reciprocal agreements with the Society for Editors and Proofreaders in the UK, Editors Canada, and the Professional Editors Guild in South Africa. And most branches have connections with state-based writers' centres and other organisations with benefits through PD programs and networking events. We will work to formalise our current reciprocal local and international arrangements under the new structure, as well as connecting with other local, national and international counterparts. We know that a diverse member benefits program keeps our members engaged and empowered, and we're working to expand the current program. Promoting our members... Promoting our members and the profession is one of our key priorities. The National Editors Directory is IPEd's major tool in doing that. We've just conducted our first review of the directory and we'll be implementing recommendations as we look to continually improve, and some of those recommendations have already been implemented. One of the top priorities nominated by you, our members, in successive surveys is recommended pay scales for editors. It's a difficult area because of legal limitations, but we do understand it as a key target. Initial research, in fact, began as early as 2012, and we're ready now to pick up the reins again. We also know the value collaboration plays in keeping members connected. We'll look into an online platform that will help the community learn from each other, possibly also including a style forum. Formation of special interest groups nationally and or within the branches is another development our members would like to see. We'll also work on that as specific needs arise. Professional development is one of the key platforms for members of any member-based organisation. We're fortunate to have strong existing branch PD programs, now augmented by the National Professional Development Standing Committee, chaired by WA Councillor Stephen White, as well as the Accreditation Board with its new chair, Desley Page. The PD Standing Committee is working to create an integrated PD framework across the branches to meet members' requirements. It will also work towards launching an online national PD program that will be accessible to regional and other members on an equitable basis. The Accreditation Board will explore how to further enhance accreditation opportunities for our members through specialist accreditation for a range of editing skills. IPEd will also examine the practicalities and benefits of moving to an annual IPEd conference from 2020. The Mentoring and PD committees will work on improvements to the mentoring program, including various suggestions floated in forums such as Secret Editor's Business to expand the current program to provide additional benefits for our mentors and mentees. And I'll hand you back to Karen to take you through the last priority.
Thanks, Kerry. There is considerable work to be done to promote who we are and what we do. and I've already begun to build awareness of IPEd among our key stakeholders, and will continue to work with them to establish our presence in the publishing sector. A new standing committee on academic editing, to be chaired by Victorian Councillor Renee Ottmer, will develop a program of activities to support editors in academic editing and publishing. We are keen to become a key player on issues that affect our profession. Taking an advisory role in the production of the new edition of the Style Manual is one example of how IPEd will do this. Expect a government survey on the Style Manual to be circulated very shortly. Other examples of industry collaboration will include that work on pay rates and working with organisations such as the MEAA, the Australian Publishers Association, the Australian Society of Authors and the copyright agencies on issues of mutual importance. As part of our promise to members, which I mentioned earlier, we are conscious that in doing the work that we do, we need to promote, train and empower. And we also need to celebrate our profession. And so part of IPEd's role here is to support a number of awards and develop them further to promote our members to the wider publishing sector and our stakeholders. Other work will be to obtain recognition of the profession of editing for publication as a discrete profession, so we can adequately assess its status through the Australian Taxation Office and the Australian Bureau of Statistics. We will also promote Australian standards for editing practice to government and other agencies and work with them to review professional standards. These 4 key areas form the key pillars of IPEd's work over the next 3 years. We are realistic in what our staff will be able to deliver, but we are also hopeful of what we can achieve together. We will now open the floor to questions. I think we have about 35 to 40 minutes. Even so, if you can, 45, please keep it brief. And if we do run out of time, or if we can't give you an answer right away, please write it down and we will develop a Q&A that will circulate amongst our members and also post on the website. There are 2 roving mics on the floor, so please put your hands up and direct your questions to the chair.
A general question, who do you see as our key stakeholders? Just to clarify the picture of that.
Karen, would you like to answer?
Sure. I suppose we have a range of stakeholders, but probably the ones that I've outlined just before, the MEAA, APA, ASA and the Copyright Agency. But it's not to say that we're not meeting with other stakeholders. It really depends on what issue it is that you're lobbying about or wanting to gain momentum on, and that will determine the list of stakeholders that you seek to build relationships with.
Karen is, of course, referring to our external stakeholders. Our key stakeholders are our members. Following that, other stakeholders are the clients of our members, the employers, the individual authors, the publishers, etc. The external stakeholders are going to be very beneficial to us to foster good relationships with them in order to further advocacy projects and policy work, things such as the changes to copyright and rights generally.
And again, it really depends on what issue there is. So I've just begun some initial conversations with those, the CEOs of those organisations, just to talk about how we can perhaps collaborate and support each other to benefit not just our members, but also the sector as a whole.
Thank you. I heard you talking before about submissions that you've made to government and university sector. I wonder if you could give some more details about what you're doing in those submissions.
The first submission was to the Productivity Commission regarding those changes that have now, they've backed down a little bit and they're doing further work on, so there's a bit of a win there. And Karen's in discussions with APA and ASA, wasn't it?
Yeah, so there'll be a round of consultations from what we hear that government will be holding next year. So we're going to see how we can perhaps come together as a bloc to do some advocacy on the issue.
The second issue with the academic sector was in league with Canberra Society of Editors, and that was to raise concerns with what is now the Australian Council for Government Research, which used to be DDOGS, regarding the guidelines and the probable need for revision, as this conference is hearing from various quarters, to look into increased PD in academic editing, to also look at accreditation specialisation for academic editors. These three areas are going to be the work of the Academic Standing Committee, the Academic Editing Standing Committee, and we'll be reporting back to ACGR on that work as we progress, and they're looking forward to working with us on those things. Well, that wasn't... Well, it was a submission to government. The style manual, what's happened there is that we approached the DTA, the Digital Transformation Agency, where it now sits, and its move from finance to DTA has meant its deferral for now. They're in what DTA call the discovery phase, where they're where they are researching with government departments and others to see where it will go forward. But what we have put to the DTA is that we want to be involved in an advisory capacity. We want input into the survey that Karen mentioned earlier before it goes out. We want input to what those questions are. We're aware there have been surveys in the past. We know there have been 3 or 4 over the last many years. And of course, things do change, and the users of the style manual change, or non-users these days perhaps. When DTA gets to a position of completing that research, we'll then be able to put to them what our role will be as we progress the revision. At this point, the DTA don't really... They're getting a better idea as they go along, but they don't know what the business model is going to be, whether they're going to put it out to tender, whether it's going to be online only or a hard copy as well. If online, will it be staged? Probably. There are such a range of questions, and these are things we want input on, and we've got a very strong style manual steering group. Janet McKenzie being one of the members of that group, Kathy Stove, Rowena Austin, Julie Ganner, Ilse Sharp from WA, myself and Karen are on there representing IPEd.
You mentioned, I think, some legal complexities around setting or suggesting rates. Can you just outline what some of those are?
The main issue there is that we are not a union, and even the MEAA cannot and does not stipulate pay levels or rates for freelancers. They're recommended rates only. There are also, some research was started, as I mentioned, in 2012. I think Rob Sheehan might have been behind that. And there are concerns from individual members that if we publish recommended pay rates, that they might not be high enough, and that they will then be restricted in what they can quote to their clients, or that undercutting could be increased. There are numerous aspects that need to be researched, and that's about to begin. But the main legal constraint is that we cannot stipulate under various labour rules.
Hi, I wanted to ask about branches. I wanted to know, are there any new branches, or is it just that the societies that we have had in the past have become branches?
Currently...
Can I just say something?
Sorry.
I'm just asking also if there's any resources for creating a branch, because I'm in rural New South Wales and I'd like to know about creating a local branch and sort of how we'd go about that.
To answer the first question, the current six branches were the former societies for New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria and Western Australia. The Canberra Society of Editors did not come across in that first round, but they as I said, we are in discussions with them. Currently, I'm not aware of any sub-branches in any other branch than Queensland. Queensland does have a loose sub-branch on the Sunshine Coast because we have quite a good, solid group of members on the Sunshine Coast. If there are clusters of regional members where there are enough people to form a sub-branch or a special interest group, then they need to step forward to us and let us know that that's what you want to do, or to the branch, and the branch can bring it to IPEd Council.
I was wondering about the 4 priorities. Are these in priority order, or do you have an order that of what you think is the most important one?
Well, yes, I guess they are in priority order, but it's not to say that the work in all areas won't be ongoing simultaneously.
If anyone wants to ask questions of councillors also, please feel free. And if councillors want to step in at any point and add their responses to mine and Karen's, please do.
We're quite happy here, thank you.
I'll lose my voice on purpose in a minute.
No, you're doing too good a job, Karen.
When you say, and I understand why, we grow the membership of IPEd and you'll seek editors in organisations to become IPEd members, what criteria will you set around that to ensure the standard is high?
I don't think we need to set any criteria that are different from those we already have. So we really do have 2 membership categories, and then we have subscription levels within that. So professional membership, there are criteria there to ensure that members have sufficient experience and or qualifications. If it's based on qualifications, it's to be in coordination, in conjunction with practical experience. And for those people who don't have that level yet, they can join as associates. Student members is a further category, 3 categories. And then we have various concession subscriptions under that. So I think the criteria remain the same. We know that there are many, many thousands more editors working in Australia and New Zealand than are members of IPEd.
I was just wondering how the IPEd directory is being promoted to publishers.
We really wanted to get the editors directory. We wanted that review to take place, which was completed just before this conference, and a very busy period for IPEd with audit and annual report to put together, and the strategic planning documents, and etc. So we need to establish the exact nature of other recommendations for change before we start promoting it widely. How will we do it? I think we've got bookmarks here that refer to a little bit of that, don't they? Yeah. So we've got the bookmarks as a little bit of collateral, a new term. But we'll also be through Karen's advocacy work, which I'll pass to her to speak on.
And we've also got a marketing plan. So we've just had a marketing plan delivered to us yesterday at council meeting. We're still digesting it, but it includes how we promote the Editor's Directory to the wider publishing sector. So you'll get updates from me or through IPEd notes or through my CEO's e-bulletin as to how we're going to do this. And it's part of what I said before. Over the course of the year, we will be letting you know what if we've reached our milestones, if we've had any achievements, where we're up to. So we'll definitely be letting you know how we're going to promote the Editor's Directory.
When will you begin to build into the strategic plan a move away from a mostly volunteer-run organisation to a diminishing of the need to use volunteers to make the organisation work?
The work began at transition. I think you'll find that the branch committees have been relieved of membership administration and much of the financial administration. Yes, we do still have budget officers. I'm one of them, so I know what level of work is required there, and quite frankly, it's minimal compared with what used to be needed, but there is still a level of work there. Branch committees have new roles, I suppose, in thinking more laterally and thinking in league with other branches, and I think at this conference there have been informal meetings of branch presidents, of communications officers. There will be people interested in the academic editing development meeting on Saturday, and a lot of cross-talk will be happening informally as well. So it's a more collaborative approach. As I did explain, our staff are small and there's only 6 staff members and they're all part-time. And some of the branches also do employ contractors, and the costs of those contractors IPEd pays as well. But to get to a point where it's minimal volunteer work, and I will press on everybody also that councillors receive a small honorarium, and the accreditation board and the standing committees don't yet. But we'd like to be able to give all those committees some sort of honorarium. But we are largely voluntary. We are voluntary. So the more the branches put on IPEd Council, the more work we've got. We can't shoulder everything, though we'd love to. But it will take some time.
I just feel like there needs to be a plan around that, because all the stakeholders that were mentioned before, and they've been around a lot longer than IPEd have, obviously, so they have a long time to build membership and resources from membership funding, etc., and other funding. And I'm not saying we should do this in a day, but we need to start thinking about it really seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously, I don't think we ever will be taken as seriously as we might otherwise while we're seen as a volunteer organisation potentially, like on some level anyway. So I'm just saying I'd like to see something at some point about.
We go to quite a few events and seminars run by professionals such as Associations Forum and the AUSSE, the Australasian Society of Association Executives. And there are hundreds of organisations like ours, and they are largely volunteer. They only have skeleton staff, and they represent some very serious professions, just the same as we do. It's not an unusual or a situation that is frowned upon or looked down on. But yes, it is part of the plan. Looking for other income streams is certainly part of the plan. Until we can get more income, find sponsorship, and increase our funds, we won't be able to put our staff onto higher levels. So that's first step, and that's in the plan, definitely.
Hi. This is a question for Karen, I think. Just to go back to stakeholders, we've talked about publishers and academics. I think the business community, the highly diverse business community, is obviously a possible huge source of income for editors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wonder what you're doing about approaching, say, peer organisations, say like Engineers Australia or any of those type of organisations to put editors on their radar.
So that's part of my work plan that Council has signed off on. And so part of my job will be to look for those sponsors or corporates or partners that we can build relationships with. And I'll be developing a prospectus, you know, to offer whatever levels of sponsorship that they might be interested in joining IPEd. So that will be new work for me, absolutely. That's one of the key priority areas. We haven't quite yet developed that list because we've only just confirmed and signed off on the strategic plan. But yes, that is part of my priority.
Kathy, one thing I've noticed when attending these professional association events is that every single person representing every single profession needs us. They are a perfect audience as clients, and I make that point at every opportunity in these places. And they talk about the need for good communication, and so they're on tap. And yes, we will be increasing our work with them.
Thank you.
I just had a comment for the gentleman above who was querying the makeup of the organisation. So I'm on the board of MIA, on the Federal Council, that's the union. And the union is pretty huge. I mean, it looks after the media section, equity, which is theatre, film, TV crew, sports people, musos, the whole lot. And this is nationally. But what's happened is our current structure is we have paid staff at both state level and federal level, and their job is to implement what we decide. All the boards and committees are made up of volunteers giving up their time. There's 64 of us for media section nationally alone. So there's huge numbers of us volunteering our time, and that doesn't take away at all from our ability to advocate, our ability to bargain, especially for rates and conditions for members, or to be effective, and it doesn't take away anything from the way people see us at all. Our reputation doesn't suffer from the way we have structured ourselves that way. Our duty as volunteers is we work in the industry. And we come from different parts of the industry, and we try to represent diversity of background and heritage and all these other things in the industry. And we come up with all the issues and the problems and the solutions, and we present them to the paid staff, and they go away and implement them because that's what they're paid to do. The only thing that harms our reputation is when we are notoriously bad at that because we don't do governance properly, which has been the case a few years ago, but not so much in the last 2 years. But the structure doesn't bother us in terms of reputation. So.
Hi, I'm interested to know what IPEd are planning to do to support and encourage young and emerging editors, particularly student members. And I wondered if you had considered having a second separate directory for your student members.
In fact, there was a proposal pre-transition. It was part of the Green Papers, and it was noted in the supplementary white paper on membership that it had been discussed and not agreed to have a secondary register for associates, and that would include students, I would think, that would be accessible by professional members, so that if they were aware of a particular associate or student who was coming up through the ranks, they might be able to, the professional members might be able to assist them in gaining work or in mentoring them in some way. But the majority of feedback that we received on that proposal was that they did not want it. SFEP does in fact have such a register for, I think it's called Associates Available. It's not something that we need to ignore. If members want that sort of a secondary directory or a directory of students, then we could again look into that, but it's not an issue that's going to get through easily, put it that way. As far as other work for assistance to students, I think there will be an increased communication with courses as we get on our feet and get into a better standing ourselves in order to go out to the publishing, editing and publishing courses and speak with them directly and do a bit of a membership drive there.
I'd like to mention that the other day I was out driving and I saw a banner on a bridge and it said Wills Week. It was sponsored by the public trustee. And I thought, why can't we have an Editors Week? So I asked my local member, why can't we have one? He said, gee, that's a good idea. I thought we could target ordinary people who perhaps don't know what editors do or have the wrong idea about what editors do. Ordinary people, not just the engineers and the academics and that. So he'd like me to get back to him to say what's the next step to do if we have such an Editors Week. And I envision this as being a week sometime in the year when people who feel like it could get out there into the libraries and have sort of speed dating with people who just want to ask them questions. What do you reckon? Perhaps
That's a good idea.
Absolutely. And these are really useful suggestions because part of the things that we were throwing around was having more national events, which we don't have because we are still so new. So thank you very much. And that's definitely something that, you know, bodies like ASA have been talking to me about, you know, how can we support you, and APA, is there something we can do for you? And we hadn't quite found that common ground. So yeah, thank you. I'll be in touch. Great.
I'll make an additional comment there. Wills Week is actually something that is supported by the charities. And there are huge legal firms whose principal work is to get people to leave their money to charities. And they make a hell of a lot of money out of it. That's what Wills Week is about. It's about getting people to donate to charities. And we could actually use that idea. Bequests to an editor.
Thank you.
I'd like a bit more information, or just what your idea is on the communications working group. You've got various groups, and that's just been mentioned, but I don't know what you've got planned.
This actually was at the tail end of transition where we said we can't do everything at once, so communication and PD are going to wait until after the first year of operation, and that's what we're doing. We've set up the PD standing committee. The communications working group in the first instance is to consider the national a national newsletter, whether we want it or not. How is it going to bring in the existing branch newsletters? What form will it take, etc., etc., and also the same for a national website. The meeting yesterday was totally instigated by those communications people. Oh, I thought it was happening last night. No, okay. It was going to, but yeah, I did find some. No, nothing else has happened separate to that so far. We're about to set up a formal. Well, IPEd has Council has two separate groups: the standing committees, which are permanent committees with. Not necessarily permanent members of them. That will roll over, and working groups, which are for temporary fixes. So the style manual, once we get to the 7th edition, the style manual working or steering group will be put on hold. The communication working group, once it does that initial work regarding the website and the newsletter, will decide then whether they'll be put on hold or whether they will continue or set up as a standing committee to assist IPED's national communication and branch communication. But currently that's handled by a staff member.
Oh, hello. I have a quick question about the editor's directory as well. I am an accredited editor with IPEd, but I'm not a member of IPEd. So if I look for myself on the editor's directory, I can't find myself. So how could a person like myself, who is an accredited editor but not an IPEd member, appear on the editor's directory? Is there a way to pay a fee for...
You need to join. You need to be a member to be part of the editor's directory.
Okay, because it used to be before the amalgamation that anybody who was accredited would come up on the IPEd list. You would look by
No, that's
state.
a different thing altogether. That's just a listing of accredited editors.
That's right.
That's just your name.
That's right.
And you could link from that to your own website.
Well, I listed to the Canberra Society of Editors webpage for myself, but is there any way that there is a list of accredited editors, which IPEd used to do, but now
IPEd
it's
still
only
does.
IPEd members now?
No, we still have that list on the website.
But it is only...
Marianne?
It's people who give permission to have...
Yes, anybody who's accredited can appear on that list of accredited editors, providing they give permission, and we ask. But so there can be people on that list who aren't IPEd members, I think, but they wouldn't be. But they still don't have the right to be on the directory unless they're IPEd members.
No, they link to their own webpage still, or their own,
No.
Can I speak a fraction to that?
Please.
I think there is a bit of confusion about how one gets oneself onto the editor's directory. It's not an automatic thing that happens if you're an accredited editor or some other category. It's a separate thing that you have to apply for and pay a very small fee, which I think is $40. And you can then go through the processes and upload your own profile, and then you are a member of the editor's directory, provided you're an IPEd member as well. Professional member, I believe.
Hi, I'm Jackie Coyle. Just going way back to this pay rates issue, I think it is really important to get it out there somewhere so that other organisations don't broadcast misinformation. Like I know there's some really low pay rates being broadcast in some writers' organisations. So, and I realise there are legal implications in Australian law. However, it could be a ballpark figure. Like expect to pay an editor between so-and-so and so-and-so, but you need to let the editor see the work so they can assess it professionally as to what it needs. In my session downstairs yesterday, it was broadcast throughout the room that most people don't actually know what their manuscript needs or their project needs. So that would also emphasise our professional standing and our authority with prospective clients.
Yeah, great point, Jackie. And we do have a reasonable idea from the surveys over the years of what the standard rates are, the average rates are. They do differ state to state. And that was one of the things that crawled it, I think, back in 2012, when I think the mining boom was a bit at its peak in WA, and there was quite an amazing disparity. And it all seemed too hard. I think, Rob, is that the case? Yeah, that's my memory of what happened to it back then. But we still have that data from back then. But it needs to be picked up, and we need to do the research properly before we leap in too quickly, I think.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like quite a broad range, you know. It could be a 30% variation in that range. So you're not prescribing, but you're just giving an idea, so that if someone thinks, oh, do I need an editor? And then they've got absolutely no idea of what it might cost. So this would just sort of get the ball rolling in their thinking, I think. And just, you know, to stop
it might be something that we can do really quickly.
Yeah.
As a baseline, I mean, Fair Work Australia has a book publishing award on it. Have you seen the book publishing award on Fair Work Australia's website?
Yes.
The book publishing award that the MEAA is a different.
It's Fair Work, and it sets up the fair rates for working in-house and in publishing.
Okay.
Details, toil and overtime, that sort of thing.
Why does it differ from the MEAA's?
The MEA's pay rate card is for freelancers, photographers and so on, and it's mid-level career and it's only a suggestion.
But they also used to have a book industry award.
The book industry award
Is that one? But it is also. It's. Yes, I know the rate card is different. That's a freelance one, but well, perhaps I'm a little out of date here on this, but I thought that the Book Industry Award was also published through the MEAA. Not anymore? Okay. Yeah. Because many decades ago I was secretary of the MEAA in the Northern Territory. Those lights are awful.
Yes, they are.
Sorry about that. The Book Industry Award was created in consultation with MIA and a few other organizations, I think, years back, and then handed over to Fair Work, which I assume is the usual process. And then it's on the Fair Work website now, and it's updated occasionally, but I don't know who has input into that to keep it relevant. And I think MIA hosts a PDF of the award just for people's information, but beyond that we haven't had any dealings with it since. But maybe that's the area we need to look into in consultation with IPEd, perhaps looking at whether it's still relevant in terms of what rates it has. But as far as I understand it, it's only for in-house editors.
It is.
And the freelance rate card is different because at the moment we can't collectively bargain on behalf of freelancers. So.
And that's something that Karen can talk to through the APA as well.
Yeah, we can discuss that.
Yeah. And tomorrow's panel is directed at this sort of discussion. So that's the Building Alliances panel, where we will have, we won't have anybody from APA, unfortunately, but we will have ASA, MEAA, Copyright Agency,
Queensland Writers Centre,
ANZI. And ANZI.
Oh, hello. I like the idea of having some sort of rate, but the reality is it's not just the hourly rate, it's the number of words you can edit per hour, whatever that is. And I think there's at least one international editors organisation that sort of suggests a range of rates and a range of editing speeds, which means in reality it's not that useful because the range is so broad That I just wonder if how useful that would be.
Well, it depends entirely on the skill of the editor, how fast they will work, and the nature of the work required, as we all know. That's why I feel, personally as a freelancer, an hourly rate is the only way I can work out an estimate for a client, because every work is different. But the hourly rate attests to,
Well, that's why I'm saying that just having a range, or
range.
even a range of costs might not be that useful because it's so variable.
Yeah, because an editor who doesn't have terribly much experience might give a low rate, but take double the time of somebody who's double the rate. It's a difficult one.
Yes, I think it's really important that if we do give any rates, it's per project. Like, say you've got an 80,000 word book, expect to pay an editor between, whatever and whatever. So it's much more realistic than per hour. Right? Per hour is totally unfeasible, unrealistic.
Yeah, but then you'd have to specify an 80,000 word book that's written reasonably well and is relatively clean, and it's a really problematic area. As we've been talking this for years. It's the perennial discussion. How do I set my rate?
Hello. Can I actually approach this from a lateral point of view? I charge what I like with authors. What I do is I send them to the IPEd website to show them what's going to be involved in the project. So if I'm hiring a plumber, I don't sit there and go, excuse me, I don't want to pay the extra 40 cents. They show me all the things that they've done, and I just think, oh, okay, it's probably worth that. So I tend to not spell it out, but I just say, for your project, this is what I will be doing, and I send them to the structural editing or the copy editing, so they know it's more than just commas, because they always want to think it's just commas, and it's always a lot more that's involved. And then I give them a time frame. It will probably take me this amount. I'll get back to you if it's going to take more, and it will be between a range. And I can charge what I like, and they don't go, don't want to pay the 40 cents. So I think it's more what we do rather than how we charge, because we're all individuals, and as we say, the projects are different. But I think it's important on the IPEd website to keep that stuff there. It's just useful as a freelancer to be able to go to a recognised authoritarian site and, oh, this is the standard.
I think the one great value of publishing a scale, a variable scale, even if it's 50% difference between them, is that a potential client can have a look at the lowest rate, and if someone gives them a quote for $25 an hour, it should sort of trigger that something's not quite right.
I'm wondering also whether those members who deliver workshops on business skills and setting rates, such as Jackie, I do one as well, and I think there are a couple of others. Maybe we should form a working group to thrash out some of these things and to write the copy for the website. Quick. Somebody done...
Marianne. Actually, that would be quite helpful because Mia wants to update the rate.
Why don't we join forces with Marissa as well there? Okay. A little project for after conference.
On the right, Kerry. Up there. Hello. Just a quick one about professional development. Could you please define what might constitute that? And are there any extenuating circumstances, for instance, for somebody who may have been sick or have been doing a degree or just has done all that they can do within their branch as far as courses go, and maybe hasn't done very much in those 5 years since they were accredited?
This is actually a question about renewal of accreditation, isn't it? Ted, please.
Yes, we can be a little bit creative and flexible about what you put down as professional development, because we realise that there are people who, for various reasons, may not have been able to attend formal courses or conferences or workshops. But there's a lot of things that people do working as an editor that we also regard as professional development. And so, by all means, sort of contact us if you're concerned about that, and we'll work out what you might be able to think of. For example, you might spend some people spend a fair bit of time mentoring other editors or advising other editing teams on current usage, language using, or doing research on current usage, perhaps, which we would think, well, it's sort of professional development, and we often look at that as being suitable. Does that help?
We've actually got two minutes left.
Quick comment. I've been a member for a number of years, started as a student member and then came through, and I've been largely absent from my state branch. I just want to say that I'm quite encouraged by the strategic direction that you guys have presented today, and I'd like to congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope we do you proud.
We will do you proud.
I think we'll call it a session. Thank you.